Hello, my name is Chris Schmidt, and I am here to introduce you to an Espresso setup I created to create trees and vegetation in C4D. Now, to begin with, you're going to have to download the file from Cineversity and all the associated textures. And once you have, then we can open it right up. This file has been created in 10 and then 10.5. I believe everything should work back to version 10. But I haven't been able to test that. I'm going to open it up the file, and right off the bat, you can see that if we hit the play button, it is going to grow a 3D tree. There we go, that's all done. Alright, now you see that just by hitting the play button and using this Espresso, I have grown a fully 3D tree that we can rotate around, we can manipulate it with anything else. These are all swept splines. And if I hit the render button, you'll see I have a little bit of a scene and some lighting set up. So as I said, this is all based on Espresso. And the setup is quite complex, but I've tried to set up a lot of user data fields so that nobody ever has to go behind the scenes. And you'll be able to create pretty much whatever you want to. Now, before we get going too far with this, something very important to do is to go into Objects, go into your Thinking Particles, and your Thinking Particle Settings. And here you want to set your max particles to whatever number that your computer is able to handle. Now, I could easily set this to 10,000 particles, but it'd start lagging as it got up to those numbers, and it'd take a while. But this is very important to do because sometimes if you make a very complex setup, which you can very easily do, and hit the play button, it's almost going to, I've had it completely take over the computer, and it wants to go through all the frames, and you have to try and stop it, and every once in a while I have to force quit, even though it is still processing. But if it's going to take 20 minutes to go a single frame forward in the timeline, then it's probably not going to be worth it. So setting your max particles is a good way to prevent that before it happens. So I just rewound it, and it undoes the tree. The tree starts growing at the time of 0. That's a setting that can be changed. But, I just rewound and hit play, and it'll regrow the exact same tree. If no settings are changed, then it's always going to generate the exact same tree. Now, when I grew this tree, I had the geometry turned on so that you could see it grow. But in general, when you're growing the trees, having the geometry live just slows it down. So I'm going to turn it off, and it being one of the most common settings, I've put it here in the HUD. So you have to do is left-click that once, and it'll turn off all the sweep NURBs that are generating the geometry and leave behind only these splines, which are created using the MoGraph Tracer object. So now as I hit play, you're going to see it grow the exact same tree, just without the geometry. Now, as this is the introduction, I'm going to point out that, and I'm not sure this will work on all computers, but I've definitely found it on all the Macintosh computers I've used testing this out. For some reason, when it's going to be growing the tree, if you hold down, if you start rotating the camera around, while it's generating the splines, it will actually run smoother, and I haven't figured out why. But for whatever reason, it does run a lot cleaner. I'd say almost twice the frame rate by rotating around the camera. So that's a helpful little hint to speed up the process. Now, there are quite a few settings, and there's going to be more than one tutorial on different setups and different things you can do. But for now, I'm just going to show you how to keep your setup kind of clean while you're working, how you can cleanly work with the settings, and there are quite a few. I'm going to expand the tree hierarchy, the C4D tree hierarchy. If you hold down Control as you hit the plus, of course, it'll unfold every single object in the hierarchy. And you'll see that there's quite a few objects here, and it'd be kind of a mess to start navigating around all those different things. So what I've done is I've placed the relevant controls into their own layer. All I'm going to do is go to the layer browser, and I'm actually going to just turn off hidden, which is the background objects. I'm going to turn off Actually, I did not name this. Let's call it tree bits. I'm going to turn off that in the hierarchy as well. So all that is left behind are the relevant tree controls, but we can still see everything here in our viewport. Now, every single object here, except for this very top one, has relevant controls for the trees we're going to generate, the different ways it'll render, all the different sizes, and I'm going to just click through here very quickly to show you how many settings are involved in this. The tree seed, not too many there. Global controls, there's quite a few. I'm going to scroll down here. Branch controls, these will control individual branches. And then we got the leaf controls, velocity, which is sort of an advanced bit. And then all these are kind of just effectors, different ways to have an effect on the tree. So this is a nice clean way of working. And of course, as I said, the two most common ones I put up here on the screen so that we can kind of quickly grow the tree. And often leaves, there's so many leaves that's really going to slow you down. You'll see if I just click on the leaves right there and I play through, since it doesn't have to generate any leaves, it's going to run a lot smoother. And of course, you can do the rotate around with the camera trick, which instantly you see how much smoother that started running. And do that again. You see how slowly it starts kind of chugging along, and as soon as I click and start rotating the viewport, it starts running much smoother. So, there's leaves, and just click the on button right there, and we have some geometry for all of our branches. Now, if I render, everything's still there. I didn't generate leaves, so they're not there. And something that's very important to mention: every time you change a setting for the tree, you have to regrow it. It won't update the tree with settings. It has to be regrown with the new settings, since everything's based off of thinking particles. Okay. Now, as I said, this is meant to be an introduction, so I'm not really going to go through any of the settings. But I just want everyone to keep in mind that this is an ongoing project. I hope to continue evolving, making it a little more sophisticated. And just because I've set up certain controls doesn't mean you shouldn't try and go deeper into it. If you have some knowledge of Xpresso, start breaking into these Xpresso tags, and you'll see that even just in this one Xpresso tag, that there's quite a bit going on behind the scenes, so you don't have to go in here. But feel free to do it. And please give me any feedback or suggestions on where you'd like to see this go in the future. Along those lines, you can change these materials to anything you want, any colors you want. All this is built at the default scale that I work at, which is 72 units equals 72 inches. But I've tried to make all the controls so that you'll be able to change the scale to whatever you work at, so you don't have to be scaling it all after the fact. Now, as I said, this is a evolving, ongoing project. I've taught myself everything I know about Xpresso just based on online forums and the manuals. And most of what I've learned, I learned while creating this. So there's always going to be new improvements, and I'd love to hear suggestions. So I think that's about it for the introduction to C4D Tree. I hope you have fun, and please check out the rest of the tutorials on all the different ways this can be controlled and some of the interesting things you can do with it. So thanks for tuning in.